Most successful auditions don't exactly leave a hugely lasting imprint on cinema itself, and why would they? But there absolutely are some exceptions, when an actor comes to represent far more than just a mere single role, and that's certainly the case with the following auditions. So with that in mind, I am Gareth, this is What Culture, and here are 10 movie auditions that changed cinema forever. Number 10. Andy Serkis, The Lord of the Rings. It cannot be understated just how much impact Andy Serkis' successful audition for Gollum in the Lord of the Rings franchise had on the landscape of modern blockbuster cinema as we know it. Serkis' famously animated audition for the role saw him not only show off a fully formed version of the Gollum voice, but he also brought the character to life on tape through his facial expressions and overall physical movements. The man's a genius. And so this prompted director Peter Jackson to scrap his original plan of having Gollum be a fully CGI character with the hired actor only providing the voice. Appreciating the physicality that Serkis brought to the part, Jackson additionally had him appear on set in a motion capture suit, in turn giving the VFX wizards at Weta Digital a huge pool of reference material when animating Gollum's movements and expressions. This effectively paved the way for modern performance capture as we know it, where the slightest subtleties of an actor's work on set can transpire through to the final digital creation. And it all goes back to Serkis' original Lord of the Rings audition, where his fully committed performance gave Peter Jackson one hell of an idea. And while we're talking about performance capture, I want to know, what is your favourite performance capture performance of all time? Is it Gollum? Is it King Kong? Is it something else? You let me know in the comment section down below. Number 9. Marlon Brando, A Streetcar Named Desire. Even if you've somehow never seen Marlon Brando act before, you need only watch a few seconds of his screen test for classic 1951 drama A Streetcar Named Desire to appreciate that he had an uncommon magnetism. But that successful dynamite audition ended up changing cinema in ways that nobody could have ever anticipated. Brando was one of the first proponents of the legendary Stanislavski system of acting, where performers were encouraged to bring their own emotional memories into their roles. And on a broader level, he also popularized method acting. And it all goes back to A Streetcar Named Desire, the movie that categorically put Brando on the map and charted his path to superstardom. That role-winning audition led Brando to become one of the most influential figures in the industry, emphasizing a more grounded, gritty style of performance over the more melodramatic, heightened acting style that defined the earlier golden age of Hollywood. And so, without Brando, we likely wouldn't have had so many of the most celebrated actors of the last half century, and acting as a craft would probably look quite different indeed. Number 8. Christopher Reeve, Superman. When Warner Brothers were first putting 1978 Superman together, they were looking at the likes of Muhammad Ali, Al Pacino, James Caan, Steve McQueen, Clint Eastwood, and Dustin Hoffman to play the Man of Steel. But then along came a little-known actor called Christopher Reeve, who, despite being deemed too skinny by the film's producers, was granted a screen test in the Superman costume. And the rest, as they say, is super history. Reeve's phenomenal screen test immediately confirmed that he had what director Richard Donner was looking for. And for all of the film's sharp writing and outstanding special effects, it's Reeve's soulful performance which really made millions believe a man could fly. But that fateful audition didn't merely ensure Superman's success, it proved the viability of superhero movies as Hollywood blockbusters. More than a decade before Tim Burton's Batman came along, and over 20 years before X-Men ushered in the comic book movie boom of the 2000s. If Superman did not hit, then who knows where the genre would have gone, and it all started with that Reeves audition. Number 7. Sigourney Weaver, Alien. So Sigourney Weaver's audition for Alien ended up changing the game for women in the genre arena, because it ultimately went so much further than merely winning the actress a single coveted role. Though Weaver was widely praised for her performance in Ridley Scott's original sci-fi horror film, the character graduated into a genuine genre icon in James Cameron's sequel, Aliens, where Weaver became one of the few actresses to ever receive an Oscar nomination for starring in a horror or action film. That's impressive stuff right there. But more than even this, Weaver blazed the trail for basically every female action hero ever since. Without Ripley planting such a decisive flag, would we have Sarah Connor, Trinity, Furiosa, and so on? Maybe not, folks. Now, these brilliant characters are all very much their own, of course, but Weaver nevertheless created the original blueprint for blockbuster cinema, the influence of which continues to be felt almost an entire half-century after that original audition. Now that is an impact. Number 6. Robin Williams, Aladdin. Now, Robin Williams was actually being auditioned to play the genie in Aladdin before he'd even met with Disney over the part. Let me explain. The filmmakers envisioned the genie as a stand-up comedian-type character, and as a test, the animation team animated a brief sequence set to one of Robin Williams' frenetic comedy albums. Williams came in, saw the test, and soon agreed to join the project, at which point he evidently felt emboldened to bring the looser, improv-heavy style of his stand-up work into the recording booth. And so, Williams ended up recording several dozen hours of material for Aladdin, which the crew then sifted through in search of the funniest and most plot-relevant material. At the time, it was a totally radical way to record voiceover for an animated film, and yet Aladdin's success ensured that this discovery method of character building became more and more popular in the years that followed. In the words of director Ron Clements, Robin changed the way animated films were perceived, his improv-infused acting style and sheer star wattage changing the very way that Disney and their competitors made their movies. Just a goat doing goat things, baby. Cheers for checking out this list today, my friend, and if it's changing your life like these actors change cinema, then hit that subscribe button down below and enjoy some more What Culture stuff on your screen. Now back to the video. Number 5, Al Pacino The Godfather. It is baffling to consider today, but Paramount executives really didn't want to cast Al Pacino in The Godfather, no matter that he was director Francis Ford Coppola's first choice to play Michael Corleone. But Pacino was allowed to audition for the part alongside numerous other actors the studio had their sights on, including Warren Beatty, Robert Redford, and Ryan O'Neal, and made enough of an impression that Coppola ended up getting his way. And with that successful audition, one of the biggest screen icons in cinema history was born. Now sure, Pacino already had plaudits to his name for his role in The Panic in Needle Park the year prior, but The Godfather brought him global acclaim and visibility, as well as a Best Supporting Actor Oscar nomination. Pacino's career immediately surged, quickly establishing him as one of the greatest actors to emerge from the new Hollywood era, with his intense acting style proving hugely influential on generations of young actors who followed him. There's just nobody like Pacino, man. Number 4, Henry Thomas, E.T. the Extraterrestrial. In the pantheon of incredible, unforgettable movie auditions, there are few more memorable than that of Henry Thomas for Steven Spielberg's E.T. Though Thomas apparently performed poorly in an original audition, he caught Spielberg's attention during an emotional improvised scene in a subsequent one, where Thomas was moved to tears while thinking of his dead dog. It's an astoundingly persuasive piece of on-the-fly acting from a then 9-year-old Thomas, and mere seconds after the scene was finished, Spielberg gleefully told him, "Okay kid, you got the job." What a moment. This audition ensured that the very emotional core of E.T. was in safe hands, and may well have influenced child acting in its wake, given the uncommon subtlety of Thomas's performance, compared to the tendency for young screen actors to, in Spielberg's own words, give 150% on every shot. Undeniably, E.T.'s subsequent global success also strapped a rocket to Spielberg, only further establishing him as Hollywood's go-to filmmaker for splashy, crowd-pleasing entertainment, effectively becoming a brand unto himself. He did alright for himself, didn't he? Number 3, Audrey Hepburn, Roman Holiday. Audrey Hepburn rose to fame off the back of her role in 1953's classic romantic comedy Roman Holiday, a part which immediately cemented her as one of the most statuesque performers of Hollywood's golden era, backed up by unforgettable future performances in Sabrina, Breakfast at Tiffany's, My Fair Lady, and many more. And every indication of Hepburn's imminent stardom is right there in her luminous screen test for Roman Holiday, which proves startling enough that director William Wyler immediately cast her instead of his original favoured prospect Elizabeth Taylor. Awkward. Hepburn won major acclaim for her performance and quickly became one of the most bankable actresses of the period. But beyond that, she also became a style icon in her own right. For every it girl the media tries to push on audiences, it all goes back to Hepburn, who set the standard by which other meteoric starlets like Barbara Streisand, Meryl Streep, Julia Roberts, Renee Zellweger, Lindsay Lohan, and most recently Sydney Sweeney would be judged. Number 2, Robert Downey Jr., Iron Man. So, Robert Downey Jr.'s audition for Iron Man made it pretty clear in basically record time that he had the sauce, as the kids say these days, to not only play Tony Stark, but ultimately carry an entire multi-billion-dollar franchise on his back. The audition tape blatantly conveys both Downey's laid-back charisma and fiery intensity across separate scenes, and so it's easy to appreciate why this persuaded director Jon Favreau and the Marvel bigwigs to pull the trigger on Downey, despite his high-profile personal personal issues. But this audition had a major impact on over a decade of blockbuster movies. Given that Downey didn't merely become Iron Man, he became the figurehead of the Marvel Cinematic Universe all the way through to his final appearance in Avengers Endgame in 2019. It's not an exaggeration to say that this tape made the MCU what it is today. And more than that, it proved highly influential on tentpole films in general, with so many blockbusters afterwards straining to give audiences their own quick-witted, effortlessly charming Tony Stark-esque character. But there is only one RDJ and Tony Stark combo, people. And number 1, Harrison Ford's Star Wars. Harrison Ford in Star Wars is an especially fascinating case, given that Ford wasn't actually auditioning at all. He was instead hired by prior collaborator George Lucas to read lines opposite the actors who were auditioning. But throughout this audition session, Lucas became transfixed by Ford's line readings as Han Solo, and ultimately decided to offer him the part even though he wasn't officially in the mix. And it's a decision which had a supreme impact on Hollywood, given that Ford became an overnight superstar as Han Solo quickly became one of the most iconic movie characters of all time. Furthermore, it ultimately led to him also portraying another indelible blockbuster protagonist, Indiana Jones. Ford soon enough became one of the highest grossing actors of all time, his peerlessly charismatic blend of roguish charm serving as the standard bearer for grizzled action-adventure protagonists ever since. And he wasn't even officially auditioning. Madness.